Hello. Today, I wanted to discuss this whole Forest Renaros ring thing. I've been kind of running with this build for a while just for testing purposes. I have played this build on multiple classes: Hashashin, Valkyrie, Guardian, Bolt Zerker, and like Succession and Awakening, as well as Warrior. I have played this on quite a bit of classes, and I can wholeheartedly just say to cut the video short for those of you that can just click out of here and just leave. Yeah, it's not worth it. And I'll go into kind of the science behind it and why it's not worth it, but to just kind of get to the point here. The price to performance and the way that console is currently set up at the moment, you don't get a lot of benefit out of these rings for a myriad of reasons, and the main thing is that the 5 DP, negligible. The damage reduction is nice, but if you really gave a shit about this, guess what? You could do something like a fucking pen cadre ring, and you could find genuinely more benefit out of this than you would most other things. Especially if you were to run a build specifically related to, let's say, the disto, for example. You could run something like this, and you could run a Tet Tungrad belt, and you would be at the 289 bracket in Awakening, and for a Warrior, you can function with this very well. And again, as I mentioned, the whole like damage reduction at 20, this is actually very noticeable. I know quite a few Warriors that actually kind of do run this specifically, and I've spoken to them, and it actually does work. If in terms of just DR perspectives, a Kadri ring on a Warrior specifically, not any other class, which I'll talk about momentarily, but Kadri ring on a Warrior does actually work, and it is surprisingly good. It is very good. However, we are not discussing a good build. We're discussing the monstrosity that I decided to test for the sake of science and boredom. So back to the goofy Tungrad Renaros ring build. This functions on one class and one class only: Succession Warrior. I'm genuinely serious. This does not work on any other class. I've tested it on so many other characters, and it just does not fucking work, dude. I'm sorry, it does not work. You could be, you know, a Guardian, and you would think a Guardian, oh, this makes sense for Guardian, you know, suck Guardian hits like a truck. She's literally fucking just swinging that axe, and she's just busting it down, and literally, I'm not even kidding, 380 DP on a Guardian feels the same as 360. I'm serious. Like, there's no difference. You could test it yourself if you don't believe me. Just put on some extra DP, and I promise you, you will be very upset at the fact that you are not going to notice a lot of tankiness. See, the problem with DP is that a lot of people have this really skewed idea of what DP is. And for the most part, people think that high DP means, oh, I can tank everything. I can get up from combos very easily. Like, nobody can kill me. Haha. Yeah, no, that's not how that works. The reason that you consider high DP is for trading reasons, like super armor trading, forward guards being stronger, abilities kind of being able to ride with animations. For example, Succession Warrior, Spinning Slash. It is a SA damage ability that we use to kind of proc our lingering crit buff. Now, it hits pretty hard, and the fact is it also has some movement with Jump Slash as well, which is double SA. So this ability actually has a lot of utility as well as damage, and again, it is protected as well. Now, I can assure you, 380 Spin Slash, the tankiness is much more noticeable than a 360 fucking Spin Slash. Same thing with using Ground Smash or Ground Tremor or Pulverize. You will notice a significant tanky like feeling running Renaros rings on a Warrior using super armored abilities. Even in an Awakening standpoint, you do the same thing. You know, grave digging, slashing, these abilities are much tankier in terms of like trading and sitting in SAs. You can linger that shit and feel like a bit more safer if you're fighting a non-grab class. So, you know, 380 on a Warrior definitely feels actually tanky, and you can get away with a lot of dumb shit. That's why, again, the Kadri ring as well as even the Kite Shield meta, dude, like people actually run the Kite Shield. And believe it or not, I actually used to run this myself too. Yeah, you can actually kill with this. I'm not kidding. You can actually like literally kill with this. I think the even funnier part is I used to run the accuracy. I still do actually run the Vanguards, and I'm not kidding. You can kill with this. I've done this so many times on EVA memes. I've tested it on multiple EVA players, strikers, mystics with kick buff and things like that. I shit you not. You can kill with this low, with as low as this AP. Granted, you have to get a little fancy with it, do the proper debuffs, as well as use you know, BSR pulverize, but it fucking works. And that's just kind of the interesting thing is like DP, you look at this and you probably think that you can tank the world. Nope, you're gonna die. You are gonna die all the same to like literally the most minimal amounts of AP. And that's the funny thing too, is that when I use the Vanguards, I'm fighting people with this kind of DP and I'm fighting them with this AP. The reason I get away with it is because of accuracy. I'm literally sitting at fucking 967 accuracy when I factor in my add-ons and when I factor in, you know, like some of the other buffs like from Solar Flare or Hilt Strike, where I'm debuffing their evasion. I am well over 1,000 accuracy, and this is with Warrior. Imagine what I'm doing with a Zerker, which even to put things into perspective on a Zerker, I don't actually have to use an accuracy weapon on a Zerker. I can literally just outright kill people on a Zerker. From a combo perspective, it's not as simple as just, you know, in large scale where you're throwing Titan Blow. It doesn't work that well still. But yeah, I mean, for real, the Renaris rings are cool in theory, and I think that they should have a purpose, and I think they actually need to be buffed. If nothing else, the game needs to adjust the meta, or at least adjust the usability of certain stats, because like these rings can actually be pretty cool alternatives to a more different playstyle. Which brings me to my next point. Even though I found a lot of success in these Renaris rings in terms of Succession Warrior, there is other avenues that do benefit from a more tankier build, and Succession Berserker is actually one of them. Now, the reason the Renaris rings kind of work on Suck Berserker is because of the HP pool and how tanky he can feel with that HP pool. Not to mention you factor in Beast Roar and the other buff where we have a lot of HP regen that's based off of HP percentage, which is very, very helpful. So you couple that with a high DP bracket, you actually get a rather tanky boy. Now, to kind of put the idea in your head that, oh, well, it's viable right on Berserker. Yes, it is viable, but you have to, one, change your expectations and lower them as well in terms of your node war performance. One, you're not going to grind with these. Renaris rings, I do not recommend grinding with. One, you're purposely lowering your AP. That's a fucking throw immediately. You want to reach the highest brackets you can when grinding. However, for a large scale and maybe 1v1 perspective, sure, you can run these and actually do relatively well. But again, your expectations need to be adjusted. For 1v1s, I still wouldn't really run Renaris rings. I think higher AP is better because you don't have to worry about random people shooting you from afar, or you don't have to worry about people jumping in and interrupting your 1v1 or peeling or anything like that. It is just a cold-blooded, like, whoever is the better player is going to be the better player. And that's just what it is. And no amount of DP is going to save you. If they are a good player, they will find a way to kill you. So from a 1v1 standpoint, I don't really think Renaris rings or Narcs or anything like that, unless they are core to your build and those are the only accessories you are currently running, then sure. But if I had to choose a build for 1v1s, Renarises are not in the conversation. Now, for large scale, this is a bit different because you can actually function with Renaris rings with adjusted expectations of what exactly you're doing. If you are a Suck Berserker, for example, right, and you are running with Renaris rings, to say the least, right? Let's say like this is like your normal build, right? Like this kind of situation, okay? And then you go to Renaris rings with this kind of goofy, sort of kind of, what's the word, like disruptor mentality. If you kind of adjust your expectations and what you plan to do with that kind of regard. So if you take this build, right, let's lower the AP a bit to kind of make this a bit more practical for the normal person. Let's say, yeah, I think this is fine. 293, 299, 379. This right here, you can work with to some degree. And what I mean by that is you can work with this for de-annexing. You can work with disrupting, you know, the enemy, their kind of composition and their ball. If they are kind of, you know, balled up pushing in, right? And you catch them a little early, and then, you know, your shot caller is like, all right, PA dive. You get the PA, you dive into the enemy, and then you disperse that ball. They have a lot of rats maybe, or they have a lot of characters that need to, you know, get out of position. You disperse that ball, and then you kind of, you know, have your ball pushing in, as well as kind of like your rats, your range classes are picking off the dispersed enemies everywhere, and they're kind of, you know, outskirt fighting. You are the catalyst to everyone else eating up, pretty much, which a lot of people don't seem to realize that is incredibly valuable, because most people have problems with diving. I've been in a couple guilds where, you know, the shot caller's like, PA dive, and then like the ball's just doing nothing. Like they're chasing a Sork in the background, they're chasing a DK, they're doing dumb shit, they're not listening. There's been plenty of node wars where the discipline of the composition is horrible. And you could be the reason that that changes, because if you are actually one of the objective players where you pay attention to your shot caller and you are doing what you are told, then you dive in, right? There are times where me and Thug Nasty are literally running our DP kind of like not necessarily DP, but like our higher DP, lower AP sets. And we are the divers that are going into the enemy composition, and we dive in, we disperse the enemy ball, and then our rangers, archers, the whole ranged class setup that we have, and our rats start to pick off the dispersed ball, and they are actually getting a lot of kills. Me and Thug don't necessarily get to eat up a whole lot, and we're not, you know, diving in and getting feeds on feeds on feeds. However, we are the catalyst to us winning the ball fight. And me and Thug, we are objective players. We do not give a flying fuck about kills. Like, do we want them? Yes. But are we going to actively choose and seek them out over our, like, you know, de-annexing the base or winning ball pushes? No, it's not worth it. So back to the conversation about this build. Does this work on Sug Zerker? Yes, but you have to adjust your expectations on what you're doing. You have to realize you're not going to really do a lot of killing with this, and you're probably going to go negative too, because you're going to be the main person diving into the enemy. So you're going to have to realize that you're most likely going to go negative quite a bit. But if your guild kind of teases you about it, they're stupid as fuck, because the reason they're eating up is because of you. And as long as you know that, you're valuable. All right, you do you, king, and I respect it because I've been there. Now I want to get back to the conversation about Suck Warrior. Okay, this character makes no sense. I really don't understand why this works so well with Suck Warrior, but he's just so tanky, and he kills like he has 300 AP 24/7. Mind you, I've played Suck Warrior at 305 and 309, okay? And when I say that the damage difference, it is pretty huge, but the fact that I can go as low as 290 and still like 3-shot somebody that's like 400 DP is kind of ridiculous. Like, I'm being serious, you know, you go in, fucking grab spin slash, ground slash, into fucking, what do you call it? Just your CC ability. What is it called? Fucking spin counter, which is not a damaging ability. So I don't really count that as like the, you know, whatever, but it's just a re-CC. And then you just go immediately into fucking like ground smash, ground tremor, and they die off of that. Like 4 abilities, and somebody with like 390 to 400 DP legit dies off that shit. And somebody with, you know, evasion too dies off that very easily. Not to mention, he feels tanky. He actually gets up from combos. Obviously, like geared players that are above 305 AP, the tankiness is a bit negligible, but like if you're fighting against someone that's like 290 AP or something, you actually do feel a bit more tankier. So I would say that you're kind of like gearlet bullying at that point, but for the most part, I mean, if you were 361, you would die. So the fact that the cutoff can be at 290 and you can still be relatively tanky and get up from combos as well as SA trade better, that is actually a positive. So in conclusion, let's just end the conversation here. Rinaros rings do have a purpose for certain classes, but most classes will not benefit a lot out of it. You are not going to put this on a DK and feel tanky. You are not going to put this on an Awakening Berserker and feel tanky. You are definitely not putting this on a fucking wizard, witch, archer, ranger, any other DR that class that's not Suck Berserker or Suck Warrior or Awaken Warrior, you are going to not notice a damn thing with these Rinaris rings. It's a waste of money. It is a waste of an idea. And unless you're just curious like me and just want to experience it for yourself, you're not really going to find a lot of love in this. I personally love my Rinaris rings because I play Succession Warrior quite a bit. So I actually do get a benefit out of it. Not to mention it's part of my Succession diving set for Berserker as well. So I do get some use out of it, but I use them in the correct expected way. Gee, my brain is fucking melting there. Where when I throw on the Rinaris rings on Succession Berserker, I'm not expecting to frag out or get a lot of kills. I'm expected to get a lot of annex kills. I'm expected to break a lot of recos. I'm expected to dive the enemy and die on repeat, as well as, you know, create opportunities for my team. That is my expectation on Succession Berserker with Rinaris rings. On my Succession Warrior, I'm expected to be a little bit more tankier, and I can still kill people relatively easily, but I have to play a bit more lucrative and weird and sneaky and not so like in your face kind of thing, because that gets me killed. So you have to be careful. The last thing that I guess I want to mention is the tongue grads. Are these worth it? No, these are not worth it. I stand by the Jatina thing, where if you run Jatina tongue grads, it's not worth it. I personally don't have these. I actually hit a tongue grad, as well as I literally bought one too, because I wanted to see if they actually have a value. And the cool thing about them is that, yeah, they're 17 AP with no DP loss, which is pretty nice, and you can still reach high AP brackets with that. But the issue being is that you lose quite a bit of it's not even that you lose, it's more that you don't gain enough out of it. Personally, if these tongue grad earrings were 18 AP instead of 17, I would say that perhaps they're worth it to some degree, because you would gain the Tet Disto AP bracket without, you know, having to have Tet Distos with a loss of DP. But the problem with that is, again, the price to performance. You're paying 50 billion for double tongue grads, right? So 50 billion for one tongue grad and then 50 billion for another one. And you're essentially getting less performance than a disto, because even though you're not losing DP, unless you are running Rinaris rings that complement that sort of aspect where you're not losing DP and you are gaining just straight 10 DP, it's negligible. It's straight up negligible. If you're running double tongue grads with, let's say, tongue grad rings, for example, something like this, where you're 296, 303 with 370, this on paper looks cool, but 370 DP is dog shit. You're gonna die all the same. So a 370 or 361, you might as well get double distos and reach the 305 bracket. Like, you might as well just do that. You'll feel a lot better in that regard. Like, there's genuinely, you will feel better, because at least you reach a secondary AP bracket. That's really good. Not only that, but 362 DP versus 370, again, negligible. You'll still die all the same. So that concludes my Rinaris experiment. They're not really worth it. Neither are the tongue grads, unfortunately. There are some scenarios where they have viability, but if you're a gearlet on the come up and you're looking at these options, just don't. Just stick to the standard distos, tongue grads, pen crescents, that kind of thing. You're not really going to find any use out of, pen tongue grads. And again, it's a waste of money. Same thing for Rinaris rings. Unless you are a Suck Warrior or Suck Berserker that's really trying to be tanky and benefit from a large scale perspective, you're not going to get a lot of performance out of them at all. And not to mention, again, you're hurting your grind. Unless you are buying backup accessories, which is even more money, it is even less. So it just doesn't make sense to do that. You're spending like 30 billion. And you're kind of going to be stuck with that for a while. And again, unless you are blessed with other pen accessories that you can swap to, this is kind of a handicap for PvE grinding, as well as some other aspects for PvP. So, yep, that's it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.